welcome by the Politricks watch. This is Sir P. Today we're going to be talking about the myth of maroon purity, especially the Akangpang maroons. It's a myth that, we didn't get this and we didn't get that, and we're, in case you're wondering where it's coming from, I tell you already, so there's a deluded hint of superiority amongst many maroons over the rest of the black population of Jamaica. Man from Akangpang will tell us, especially them time in Akojo days, tell us, well, I was no slave Negro. No, guy, you were worse. You were a slave catcher. You were worse than a slave. You were a slave catcher. The Irish Saxon that hunted and killed. And other black people were trying to get their freedom. That's worse than being a slave. But the idea of purity, people make it sound like, maroon lineage is just straight from Africa to the maroon villages, no dilution, no mix up, it's all unique and meat. Let me give you a sentence was taken by Bakra himself. I give you the actual names. Some of the people them were in Akangpang. You go see the name them spooky. Very spooky last names. Even the quote-unquote chief, Richard Coconut, his last name is what? Curry? What kind of African lineage of purity can make a man have a last name like Curry? Today I'm going to tell you about even the history of Richard Coconut, where his name comes from. On top of that, I'm going to show you some pictures of some actual slaves from slave times. Not movies, not caricatures, not like the depiction of what it was like. No, actual slaves. I'm going to show you that too. As I say, Iron Man, quote unquote history is more like unicorn history. There's a lot of dilution, watered down, cover up. Because the real history of Iron Man is very embarrassing, as we say. That's why most of them never hear about Thomas Tissoud ever. Because imagine, right, a pale, frail Billy Joe who left England and drop an Iron Man and rape off black woman and black girls for 40 years in front of a black man and then die of natural causes. These things are embarrassing. Jamaicans, black people love to tell them bad and then wicked, all these memes and skit stuff. Oh, if it was us, guy, your great grandfather sit down on plantation and watch man rape woman and him daughter in front of him and never run a program yet. I know Jamaicans love run program. They made run program pan them mother for dead left land. Never run none pan Tissoud do. Before me go into that, tomorrow I have a video I drop about such man. But telling you say, Wormy, CM from Joseph Lynch and Charmaine Ratchford days. The same Wormy who be the one on the boat end up come play a role in the worst mass shooting in Jamaican history. And again, people quiet. But Wormy a clansman. Cherry Tree Lane a quote unquote Black Azan place. But then such man link with Black Azan. So why would clansman, especially Tesha Miller faction, go help take part in a raid on a turf of somebody who's an ally? It don't make sense? It's going to tomorrow. Tell such man and him Snowflake for tuning in. Make sure them have them popcorn. I'm not talking about the DJ guys. But we can start off by showing them what actual slaves look like. Check this picture out. That's what slaves look like. These are actual slaves. The brother and the Miguel look like one of the man where the Runkus them want to take for themselves. And tell them say, yo Runkus dog, better with us easy. Cause bad to bad. Look how much sugar cane we I get, bro. Or the back row say me can get one extra 5 piece. If we go out in the bush, or we go buy sugar cane, bro, better with us easy, man. Look how the cane sweet, dog. go out in the bush and how much mosquito go bite me up and yo better just easier so runcos. That's what a black woman slave look like. Matter of fact, check out this next picture. Look at Bakra in the corner. Look at the pose of the slaves and look at the body language of the slaves. Slaves on plantation were not walking around in shackles 24/7 with guns to their head. Again, this imagery is done because people find it hard to make sense out of how 5-6 Europeans can dip on a plantation with 100 Negroes and a call shots. There is no amount of gun, there's no amount of bullet was supposed to make that happen. Matter of fact, most of Bakra's tactics was to get the mind in line, that way the body will follow suit. These were actual slaves in Ireland. Look on Granny at the front there, sir. Look on Granny in the bottom right corner. That pose them mad. Look on the brother behind her. Everybody looking at the camera. Sugar cane in the mouth. Majority what you see? Woman and younger males. The majority is females and younger males. Them youth the way I see. Even though enough of them look like say them a big man, a hard life make them look so a young youth. The brother to the left with the big hat on him head, him look like a older man. But the rest of them are young youth. That's how Bakra did it. Majority black women around him and younger males. Because those are the two easiest groups him thinking could have control. Now understand, so for the younger youths that will come up under Bakra rule, especially the one them get to eat sugar cane and get certain little perks. Now for the loyalties like Bakra. Now for the man them who like quote unquote rebel, they got dealt with. Runkus and them man they either run me or dead off. Look at Bakra in the corner. He looks comfortable, doesn't he? Does that look like somebody who's scared? So in case you're ever wondering what a group of Jamaican slaves actually look like, this is it. A plantation had black men, women, children, and quote-unquote mulattoes who were a mixture between black and white when Bakra would have breed off and enslaved them. Somebody like Barack Obama back then would be called a mulatto. The most rebellious of slaves, you're not going to see them in this picture. Runkus and him dog them, not in this picture. Because them either dead or on the run. Bakra never comfortable on Runkus, because Runkus don't want him sugar cane. Runkus don't want posting a picture of Bakra. So now you know what actual slaves look like. Now let's get back to the myth of maroon purity. That's some kind of pure African lineage. Unlike the rest of you Negro slaves. I'm showing the names of people who are actually in a compound. As you can see, these are the compound maroons. Right, this was taken the 27th of October 1831. So this is after the treaty. If you're wondering why this happened, again, the book The Maroon Story we'll be telling about explains it. Bakra made sure to keep track of the Maroons, the Maroon communities, the population, etc. As you can see here, up at the top where you see a compound town Maroons favored, I already tell you why. But below that you see registration of Maroons started in 1799. Skin color still an issue. Registration, you just don't fight war with man and sign treaty with man. And man I go tell you say, yo guy, me I go send some of my boy them come live in a your place. Just to make sure so we not go out with the hanky panky business. So me I say. And if on top of it make sure so the whole of your people them registered. So me I say. A man sit down there will claim some bush warrior and nod him head and say, yes my general. It's ridiculous. It says right here, indeed, the government went further to watch and control the people of the Maroon communities, by the way, who are supposedly so free from control, and Bakra couldn't do nothing because we was different from the rest of these Negroes. history says otherwise. See, they had provided in the law of 1791 for the registration of the ages and names, the military status, and ranks as militia officers of the maroon men in all the maroon towns. In those returns, skin color continued to be important and they were described as blacks, mulattoes, quadroons, or quinterons. The names and ages of women, the names, sex, and ages of children, infants, boys, girls, were also given. Persons owning slaves and the names and ages of them. The absentee maroon members and their whereabouts were also recorded. Bakra went as far as to tell maroon guys, say, yo, not only we want to know every maroon will living at the place, but all the man them were there somewhere else, I'll feed them name we want to. And man see this, nod them head and say, yes, my boss. However, the references to skin color emphasize how that issue underpinned England's colonial policies. Considering the independence of the Maroons, quote-unquote independence of the Maroons, which by the way is nothing more than delusion, to this day, Negroes right across the world love to use the word independent. They don't know the meaning of it. And when you challenge them tell you how much money they make, and how much sugar cane them can eat, and how much horse and carriage them could drive. Back then, nowadays a car. Now them tell you about them Beamer. Now them tell you about them Benz. When they say, guy, there is no independence, no real independence, him tell you, say, yo, me have my things, you know, me have my house and my car, go suck your more. Can't tell Negroes nothing. When you point out the fact that, guy, look at the very foundation here, so who is really in charge? Who made the final decision? Who does this? Him tell you, say, yeah, but me have my money and me have my things. Just like back then, maroon guy tell us, yeah, but me have cockpit culture, me can go hunt as much hog as me want, me can stuff me gut a hog all day. Me can stuff me gut a pig until me look like a pig. Freedom at last. The modern day equivalent is, yeah, look how much money me have, look how much this me have. You point out, say, guy, independence is independence. But man, not delusion at all, but yeah, but are we running off over here so because watch you now, we see that we can go over here so, or we can hunt as much pig as we want, or we can build as much shack as we want, or we can cut one piece of bush over here as much as we want. See me I say that cause the cockpit country, see me I say, so like independence, bro, deluded. Deluded, just like back then, just like now. So as you can see, considering the quote-unquote independence of the Maroon, we see no reason for any reference to color. That's because there was no independence. It was a myth. Bakra never gave them independence. Even though the treaty back then was legal and formal, there was no independence. This is how the British controlled people back then. Guy, alright, this territory is our territory, but here what, you control over here, so and you can like paint the wall any color you want, and you can like do this and man say, yo, you see dog, how we are run things. It goes on to state, this could only suggest that on the basis of color, the Quinteron Maroon might have any opportunity at all. In fact, this explains certain discussions that Maroon cousins had with the author's grandmother in the 1940s. Discussions in which the matter of color was often mentioned. Clearly, some Maroons were unable to escape the effects of 200 years of institutionalized racism by English colonial governments in Jamaica. Racism and color prejudice permeated the entire social fabric of Jamaican society, catering to this worst of human instincts. You will hear many Jamaicans tell you that in Jamaica there is no race issue, just a class issue. This is one of the many dogmas. This is one of the many unicorn myths. This is one of the many false narratives allegedly educated Jamaicans spout, as if they came up with it themselves or put any real thought into it. The idea that color, no matter in Jamaica, it's class, rubbish. The idea that Jamaica has no color issue is also rubbish. Jamaica has always had a color issue, guy. But you're delusional. This is just another one of the lazy narratives like poverty causes high murder rate. Jamaica has no color issue, it has a class issue. Guy, what was the foundation of that said class? It was color. I wonder if you're listening to me. The foundation of said class issue was rooted in color. Hence, a regular Billy Joe could be high class just because he was a Billy Joe. When Jamaicans realized it was going to be spooky to explain a lot of the things in Jamaican society post 1962, when they realized they could not give the masses the real answers, they came up with a bunch of false narratives, stamped them in the quote-unquote education system, feed them to the brain of the more educated Jamaicans, who then passed it along to the not so educated Jamaicans. And one of this is that Jamaica don't have a color issue, Jamaica have a class issue. False. Jamaica absolutely has a color issue. You must be slow to not realize Jamaica have a color issue. Guy, bleaching cream can't stop selling Jamaica because Jamaica have a color issue. At the top of the food chain is white. White is right. But if you can't be white, the next best thing is to be very, very light. Okay. We're going there. We're going there. Because now you want to pretend like you don't notice that in Jamaican society back then and now, people with a certain look and skin tone got treated differently. Is that not color? It certainly isn't class. Because if you go certain places in St. Elizabeth, many of the people who are very, 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 very high color are dirt poor and are of no great economic standing. However, based on their complexion, based on their skin tone, still better than you. Let me tell you that. And then parents will tell them, say, make sure you don't bring no dirty nigger in this house. Because we're not like them. What is the source of this attitude? It certainly isn't no class. Enough of them people are farmer, dig bush and them something. Live hand to mouth. They're no upper class people. It's color that's the root of it. But these are uncomfortable conversations. These are uncomfortable conversations in Jamaica, and Jamaica has done a lot to avoid uncomfortable conversations. So whenever the majority Negro asks a question, there is something there to silence him. When the majority Negro asks, hold on, how comes them and the small minority population but so much power and influence and dominance? How do you disarm the Negro who asks that question? Simple. You tell him out of many one people. Then when you start to realize, when you go into the upper echelons of Jamaican society, it starts to get lighter, to the point where it's gone full white. And now you're asking the question, hold on. Matter of fact, recently I was contacted by an Irish Saxon, a reformed Irish Saxon, who tell me say he used to burn out the little YouTuber, but look like him brain finally start work. Tell me say I'm a big businessman, successful businessman, black businessman at that. And you know it already, when you start make money, you start link with certain people and start get invited to certain places. And I tell me say after getting invited to certain places in Ireland, him realize he was in Jamaica, but he felt like he was in Norway. He felt like he was in Switzerland. Because he became the minority. When I tell you, listen to me. He's still in Jamaica. But when he go certain places, him and the other black business people them, in a them setting there, him turned the minority. He was confused. Because he thought he had reached the pinnacle. And now he's going to see all these other Negroes who are so successful like him, and it's going to be like hanging out and be cool together. He said he was in for a culture shock. And when he meet other black businessmen and businesswomen, and him ask them, people who, come from similar socio-economic backgrounds, people who know in a theme tax bracket, so all them make money. So he might talk to him, yeah, you notice say, when they go certain places, they were all saying the same thing, guy. At the highest levels in the area, man, black people become the minority. You're now the outsider. The reason why them love the argument about there is no color issue, just class, is because class is a ghost you cannot fight and win. Because class can become whatever you want it to be. Class is something that you can change the rules for. It's not tangible. Color is. Color you can point out and say, Sitam Tavares Vincent. But class, well that, every 10 years that change. To show you how quote unquote class is fickle and is really an imaginary ghost you can't win a fight against. You could be a millionaire Negro and still considered low class. Like, enough of the people in a high society in Jamaica don't consider Usain Bolt to be upper class, even though Usain Bolt might have more money than them. Jamaica absolutely a color issue. Color was at the root of it. Hence, when they register Maroons back then, they had to specify their color. It's laughable the whole Jamaica has no color issue, guy. Color and class are intertwined. It's one of the reasons why enough Jamaican man don't think they make it till them find either a Gwinnett or quote unquote browning. That's the Negro's dream right there, a Bima and a browning. I've made it. When him did poor, him baby mother was a dark skinned girl with 4C ear, and him used to lie down and wrap up with her and ball at night time to get little eagle eye from her. Soon as him bust way, suddenly he start ear say, that not gonna work again. Ear too nappy, skin too black.
Brother, what's that? What's that, brother?
All of a sudden he becomes disgusted. It's because the color is attached to a higher class. Color is symbolic for a higher class. In slavery days, the higher your color was the higher your class. So Negroes, dark-skinned Negroes like I said earlier, on the plantation, aspired, and what did they see associated with people who were higher class? People with higher color. So bleaching cream can't stop sell. That's why Jamaicans would buy bleaching cream to poison them organs and kill them. They'd rather die than be black. And then they're sick and the doctor said, yo, you have to ease off of the cream now, brother, you're dead. You're rather dead than be black. But by saying Jamaica has no color issue, it's a class issue, it completely ignores all of that. And make people look at something where is intangible, quote unquote class. Now, let's look at the names of the maroon people, shall we? Some of them, officers. Lieutenant Colonel Andrew White. By the way, these are maroons. These are maroons. You might be thinking, yeah, I read about some Englishmen. These are maroons. Listen to them name. Lieutenant Colonel Andrew White. Captain James Rowe. And by the way, if you ever wonder why Jamaicans have certain names, this show you where they come from. These are Bakra names. These are English names given to Negroes. Sometimes Jamaicans don't even know their real names. A black Jamaican last name should be something like Mbappe or Etu or something like that. Instead, Jamaicans name Smith and Reed and all them something like. Look on the names them. Captain James Rowe, Captain William Dennis Reed, Captain Foster. Guy, you might find your own last name on this. Guy, if you go back and look on the names of the Englishmen, if you go back and look on the colonial slave owners, you know where the last name come from. Let's see some of them. You have Lieutenant Robert Pete, Lieutenant Rowe, Lieutenant John Watson, the privates, William Adlam, John Adlam. It's the people like Edward Barrett. It's the William Bryce, Frank Cross, Wolipa Cross, Thomas Curry, Mulatto. Pause. Thomas who? Curry. Ring a bell? Does it ring a bell? I soon tell you about the Curry them. Next up you have William Davis. What the Davis them there? Thomas Cross. Barnett Dennis. Mulatto. By the way, notice they make sure specify who are mulatto. Joseph Dennis. As you can see, Barnett Dennis was a mulatto. Joseph Dennis was a Sambo. Go down. Alexander Faulkner. William Dowan. Where the Dowan them there? Who only there? See the mulatto. Samuel Faulkner. Matthew Farquharson. Antonio Flesharkey. The quadroon. And by the way, the people wondering what is a quadroon, that is somebody who is quarter black and 3/4 European. So like how a mulatto is 50-50, a quadroon tended to be 75-25. So like one biracial parent and one white parent. In other words, a mulatto woman and a white man would make a quadroon. John Griffith, where Griffith them there? Thomas Holliday, James Horton, George Ludwig, Richard Miles, where Miles them there? Edward Pete, Samuel Pite, Charles Quarry, George Reed, George Roach, Charles Rowe, Wolipa Rowe, Robert Salmon, Smalling Smith, One Bagger Smith, Wolipa Smith, Alexander Shileto, Thomas Stretch, James Stone, James Swaby, where you Swaby them there? Robert Vervin, John Webb, Thomas White, Robert Wright, James Montague, where Montague them there? All them names are background name, colonial names. Let's look at the women, the last name them, Austin, Barrett. We see Carr, C-A-R-R, with the Carr them there. We see Sophie Curry, another Curry, who's a mulatto. We see Bella Crisp. We see Eliza Davis. We see Jane Dennis, where Dennis them there. We see Catherine Dockery. We see Falconer, we see Griffith. We see Holiday. Bear Reed, Bear Rowe. Nuff Roach. Nuff Salmon. Stretch, notice again, them specify who is a mulatto. Who is this and who is that? Colored matter. Colored mattered back then, color matter now, guy. Suki Wright. Wolipa Wright. Now never George Wright. So far the most common name I see is Wright. Wolipa Wright. When you go up on the girls them, same thing. But more want to look on this. Residing out of town, that will show you how backwards serious all the people who are living in our account bank still have to get registered. And them location have to get put down. Look on this. James Allego, him that Kingston. George Allen that Trelawney. Richard Burroughs that Stony Hill. Robert Creighton that Westmoreland. Thomas Douglas, where Douglas them there? You see Ditto, that means I see him as Westmoreland. William Fullerton. John Hewitt that Spanish Town. Whatever clans are one other. William Humphreys that St. James. Robert Chanel that Spanish Town. George Smith that Lucy. Wolipa Smith. That's one of the most common names in Jamaica. Smith one of there. Mary Allen that Kingston. Susan Adlam, that said James. Bakra was very specific. Make sure you tell me how much people you have. And all the one them who not there, give me them name and tell me where them there. And man see them sitting there and say, yes, my boss. We see the Harton one of there. We see Farquharson one of there. We see Sarah Harrison one of there. Remember, these are all Maroons. Them sound like people from London. Sound like people from Birmingham. Sound like people from Newcastle. Sound like people from Liverpool. Sound like Stephen Gerrard name. Very English name for Maroons, no? Very English name for warriors who are African purity and never been corrupted by the Europeans. False. What that say? Names of slaves. Yes, there were slaves in a compound. Let me explain to you how this works. Back then, how Bakra labeled people was Maroons were Maroons and the rest of the people who came off a plantation were slaves. If a slave run away and go live in a Maroon town and he was accepted in that town, then he would still be labeled a slave. So these people were originally from a plantation and then now them in a compound. Remember, Trelawney Town and many of the Maroons were forming armies that was a mixture of Maroon and quote-unquote slaves. And they would fight against the British. In the Second Maroon War, it was Maroons and quote-unquote slaves. Trelawney Town, them live amongst the Windward Maroons. Charlestown and Moortown and them places, them live there. And that's why there are many Jamaicans who can trace one parent to a Maroon. Because that parent was a quote-unquote slave who did go live in our Maroon community. So Akongpong had a few males, 7 of them. Their names Billy Bosque, aka William Rowe, to Captain Rowe. James Foster, to estate of late Maroon. Now I want to read this carefully. Read this carefully. Billy Bosque, aka alias William Rowe, to Captain Rowe. Remember Captain James Rowe? A Maroon? Well, Billy Bosque, right. You see them say to Captain Rowe? Charles Reed, also Captain Rowe. Joe, Captain Rowe. James Foster, to estate of late Maroon, a slave that belonged to a late Maroon. In other words, the Maroon dead. Foster alias Jacob Alves to Colonel Foster. Fascinating, no? Slaves that belonged to Maroons. Slaves that were assigned to Maroons. But they already said Akongpong had plans to create their own quasi-Bakra system. Females, Betty. Who Betty belonged to? Captain Rowe. Olive, also to Captain Rowe. Phyllis, Captain Rowe. Dolly, alias Darley, to Molly Dockery. Rachel, to Molly Dockery. Betty Graham, Bessie, to estate of the late Colonel Foster. Slave all get passed down the line. Now, Akongpong will tell you that, yeah, but even though it's said, them belong to, Rowe, and I really see him, you see me, I said, dog, here's the reality of this. One of the things them who Akongpong did try to negotiate with the British was that they may not have the ability to establish them own, as me say, quasi-Bakra system. They never looked at the black slaves as black people, like, we're in this together. Fascinating stuff, guy. Now, as it relates to Richard Curry, look on your screen. You see the name George Curry? See they mention that the Rocky Mountains and the cockpits. Look on your screen again. You see David Curry. Right, from the Center for the Study of the Legacy of British Slavery, it's David Curry. The Curry family, I mean I talk about the Billy Joe Curry family, is who responsible for the last name Curry that Richard Curry have. So when they make it sound like, non-maroon blacks, you're like, Billy Joe did have this over you, guy, you also had Billy Joe. Billy Joe run the program so much that he gave you his own name and you took it. Curry is named after Abakra, facts. Just like the non-maroon slaves were named after Abakra. No African can name Curry. Which man from West Africa can name Curry? And Rowe. And Smith. And Faulkner. What kind of rebels take the name of their former enemy? This is ludicrous! You just go to war with man. No, you have my name. Farcical. No, just like now, back then, people tried to hide behind God. Which God? Did you know that in Akongpong, there is a Presbyterian church with a plaque that boldly declare, say, are them responsible for the Maroons getting rid of their African names? You don't believe me? Look on your screen or ask your friend from Akongpong. Let's read this. Akongpong United Church of Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, which is also another place where Irish accents think they're independent. And when you challenge them on this, they tell you how much money they have and how they can buy and how them currency strong and all them something. But, yeah, we know how that go. The Presbyterian Church, now referred to in Jamaica as the United Church of Jamaica and Grand Cayman, built the existing church structure in Akongpong. This structure is said to be one of the oldest structures in Akongpong, consistent with the church's educational focus. A school was kept in the building during the week, and on Sundays, regular church services were held. Do you think that the school they taught those pitney anything that would empower them? Make them one day challenge Bakra? Never. Goes on to state, the Presbyterian Church was responsible for changing the African names of the Akongpong Maroons to British names. On December the 2nd, 1965, the Presbyterian Church in Jamaica and the Cayman Islands combined with the Congregational Union to form the United Church of Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. The third paragraph boldly and dry-eyedly declare that it was the Presbyterian Church that was responsible. It was the Presbyterian Church in alliance with Bakra that was responsible for changing the African names of the Akongpong Maroons to British names. That's how they all ended up with those silly names like Rowe and Smith and all them something there as Maroons. Black Africans with nothing to do with Europe are walk around calling themselves Faulkner. The Presbyterian Church played a major role in it. Just like now and back then, God played a major role in slavery. Which God? One set used God as motivation to be free. Some of Jamaica's national heroes were preachers, and they used God as motivation to inspire the people them to revolt. And said this is not what God would want. No, God would want you to be a slave. But then there were also people who used God as motivation to enslave and said, God says, alright, don't worry, one day I'll go heaven. Which God? Can't make this up. Just like now, it was back then. People just use God for their own agenda. Everybody just declare God and love God. To this day that stand in Iron Man, some of the wickedest people ever say, love tell about God. After Thomas still say we done rape off much black woman, him tell you say God love him and God this and God that. When after Bakra just done spend the whole week beating and torturing humans. Sunday he was in church. Said God bless me. Him give all big testimony. Say God bless him plantation. Which God? So just like then, just like now. When people are telling about religion and God and this and that, ask them which God. Ask them. They should be happy to tell you. As me say, once a man use God and the church as motivation to liberate people, and a next set use God and the church to keep man enslaved. But the two of them say them love God and the two of them claim they were following God. During Hitler's days, when the Nazi army used to walk, when the Nazi army used to invade countries, on their uniform, sometimes they would have a saying, translated to English means God was with us. That's why anybody can come preach to me and talk to me and tell me about God, because I'm going to ask you which God. To this day, the role that some of the denominations in Ireland played during slavery has never fully been addressed. Man just slip past it. Presbyterian Church is what they use to change the names of the Maroons in Akongpong. The truth is, many of your favorite pastors in the slavery days were Bakra's agents, and they told the slaves, guy, don't worry the fuck say you're a slave, don't worry the fuck say man just beat off the skin off of your back. Because one day I go somewhere where I will get beer, white rice and curry chicken. Has to be studied. Religion, like politics, can be used for good and it can be used for evil. The church has helped many people turn their life around and become better people. But the church played a major role in slavery and it has not been discussed enough. Now you might tell me, well, that's not my denomination. Me no belong to no Presbyterian. That may be, but still. Them did say them are acting in the name of God. Which God? Must be the blonde hair, blue eye God that them put on black people wall. And your granny did have up. Must that one me. Anyway. Patreon squad, big up on yourself. PIA, you don't know. More life. Ultra squad. See you circling. Bless.